about SMP, from this one to this one, all in detail about trichopigmentation or SMP. If you want the best hairstyle quickly and without surgery, this is the hair system. If you have slight alopecia and it does not develop too dynamically, or if you are happy with sparse but distributed hair and white dots on the back of your head, it's a hair transplant. If you like the effect of a shaved head, it's SMP, or what is also called trichopigmentation. Trichopigmentation, or SMP, is one way to combat baldness that is becoming increasingly popular. Just as the emotional, yes, that's right, emotional demand for getting rid of the bald rim effect is growing. My name is VALYN, OLEG. I am the one who studies clinics, doctors, and professionals all over the world in order to find an individual solution to your specific problem. I don't have my own clinics, and I have no personal interest in getting rich off of you by selling junk, useless products. For many years I have been collecting information on this subject, interviewing professionals all over the world, studying the results and consequences after several years. Today, I'm going to go into all the nuances of my own trichopigmentation, share some trichopigmentation know-how, and try to prepare you to have exactly the information you don't have anywhere else. If you have the information, you own the situation. Let's go. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share the video. If you have any questions, you can ask directly in the comments under the video. Within the first hour after the video is released, I actively answer all questions that come in the comments. So today I'm on my way to fix all of this, especially the front line. Well, and I also want to give a little density to the area where there is no hair and there is no way to put it there. What is trichopigmentation SMP? It is a method of applying pigment to the scalp to simulate hair and reduce the appearance of baldness or hair thinning. It is done in the form of dots and rarely, sometimes even stripes. When did I first start looking for information about trichopigmentation? Probably in my 20s. I'm 41 now. Back when I was already decently bald and in the days when it was essentially impossible to turn to anyone for reliable information. Back then, there were no people who were doing any public outreach related to hair, hair loss, hair treatment, hair restoration, or techniques for getting rid of a bald head. Well, basically what I'm doing now. It's all about finding the best solution for each individual case. Back then, I was sold everything from miracle solutions, ointments, shampoos, and so on. I think you've been exposed to it too. And the more interested in bald people's money, the more stuff you'll be offered. Somewhere in my 20s, in an emotional rush, I even almost had my entire head tattooed with a hair type tattoo. Thank goodness something stopped me. But nevertheless, the tattoo artist did some stripes. You can't see it anymore because of the trichopigmentation, and it was noticeable as dirt. So one more time, take your time and watch the video to the end to understand all the nuances and moments that you may encounter. The main thing is not to spoil your appearance and, as a consequence, the quality of life in the future. The second try was somewhere in 2016 to 17 after the first transplant using the FUT technique, and then I had the goal of covering the scar because it was the scar that started to stand out very much among the rest of the hair on the donor area when it was dense, and it was necessary to remove this visible stripe because the reaction of people around me was very strange. Yes, when you have something on the back of your head you don't notice it, but you constantly catch the eyes of others who think that you must have had your skull opened from behind. And so I had the goal of covering that scar so that it wouldn't be so strong. Why did I choose SMP trichopigmentation? It was my personal plan, and I am following it. Let me remind you that any aesthetic impact will affect your quality of life, but with a positive or negative sign. If you emotionally approach this issue without consideration, as many clinics and try to catch you on the hook, where neighbors or acquaintances advised, where it is closer, where it is more convenient, and even more so, where it is cheaper, all this is a paved path to what is necessary for commerce and not for you. 9 months. Am I happy with my hair transplant? Let me remind you that I had my second transplant to close the scar after the first transplant and to plant some hair on the top of my head. I was promised that they would cover everything, and of course I emotionally trusted, as many of you also trust clinics. All in all, I got a bangs, a horrible front line and still the same bald top of my head with the use up of my valuable grafts from the donor area. Accordingly, my cold and motionless plan now was to find a good professional trichopigmentation artist to close the baldness of the top of my head and give an even look all over my head. I wanted the transplanted hair to create texture as well, thus avoiding the shine effect. After extracting the grafts in a hair transplant, as time passed, I began to have very noticeable white dots. You see the dots? There they are. Does any clinic know what's going to happen to you in 2 to 3 to 5 years? Well, that's basically the first thing I warn you about in my detailed and free consultations. Almost all possible questions are already covered in my videos on my main Russian language channel, videos from which I am gradually translating into English. If you don't have time to watch videos, book an individual one-on-one consultation where I will personally analyze your situation and create a plan of action specifically for you. Every case is different, so we will make a plan that will work exactly for you. Plus, a clinic promo code will even make your transplant cheaper. The first video I did was 6 months after the transplant. At that time, we were looking for those very white and not yet very noticeable, almost imperceptible, white dots. What it takes to make sure you know exactly what's going on with the skin, what happens to the donor part. Anyway, I shaved off all my hair to nothing. I can't say I feel good about it or want to walk around with it. Hopefully it will grow back quickly, but at least you will finally see if there is any scarring or marks after the follicles are extracted. And at that time, nothing was noticeable. Then a year later, when I inspected the Asmed clinic, I found this. But that's not all. The more time passes, the more visible keloid scars become. Those white dots. They're graft harvesting marks. Some people have them more, some people have them less, but everyone has them. 6 months from now. Do you see any scars? I don't see any yet, that is, it's all visible on camera. Just look, speculate. First of all, it depends on your skin type specifically, which I always warn you about in my detailed consultation. When I can understand and look at the skin type, what is the quality of the hair, what is the age, what is the ability to regenerate the skin, and there are a lot of other things that I look into and consider in the consultation. And also for those who are on my personal annual follow-up, where we go from and all the way to the end until we get a result. And if I see that you are at risk of getting the same clearly visible white dots, I always warn you about it. Thousands of heads I've already reviewed in my consultations, and it's already very obvious to me when at what skin type, age, and many other parameters, white dots will be very visible on your skin. On some more, on some less, but everybody has them. It also depends on the graft extraction technique, who does it with what and how they do it. Nevertheless, if you are doing or planning to do a hair transplant, prepare yourself for the possibility that one day you may see a lot of white dots like this. So, the second reason and additional area for trichopigmentation is the donor area. Total trichopigmentation on the upper zone gives me the opportunity to walk with a shaved head again, so that this area where the grafts are not planted does not shine, and does not shine with its unnaturalness. Because in essence, there's hair transplanted here in the form of a chub, and there's a bare area. And trichopigmentation on the donor area also gives the opportunity to wear the hair system normally without this highlighted scar and tattoo. The first thing I started planning was, of course, my front line. Just as I prepare my guys for surgery and model the front line for them in advance, it's the same for trichopigmentation. After all, it's something that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. I mean, why would you skimp on that? This is what my first procedure of frontline planning looked like, taking into account my modeling in advance. First procedure 4 hours later. You can see it's still red. It even hurt a little bit at the end, especially on the areas right here and on the top of my head. The 4th hour I really wanted to go home. Now I've been given the actual contouring. All you can see is that it's still too dark a color. I mean, it's gonna lighten up. I asked why they put pigment on these parts, because I have my own parts. You need to do this to completely color align the side area and the top. So far, I love it. I can no longer see the fake line that was done in a cheap hair transplant clinic. We will wait for it to take its color, and the next procedure will be to close this part where I have a lot of white dots. While I was doing the modeling, I also started removing my old tattoo that covered the scar. It was actually possible to do over the top, but I took a very responsible approach and, on the advice of specialists, removed the old tattoo. It is painful and may require several approaches. In my case, thank God, I managed with 2 procedures, and it's good that this area is not so big. And after tattoo removal, you should wait at least 2 months before trichopigmentation. It is believed that after laser removal, the skin is not yet ready for a new pigment and is still undergoing tissue repair. So if someone has a similar situation, keep in mind and prepare in advance. It's been 2 weeks since my first trichopigmentation treatment. I can see that the color has started to fade. That's why you need to repeat this procedure several times, so in my case it will be 4 to 6 times. Here, you can see, and this is where my hair is growing out, and this is trichopigmentation. As the hair grows back and gets longer, the trichopigmentation becomes less visible. So this is the nuance. The longer you grow your hair, the less visible the trichopigmentation becomes. SMP trichopigmentation is only relevant for bald heads. So if you have long hair and want to tone your scalp, the trichopigmentation will be much darker too. But when you shave your head, it can look super unnatural. So this is a point that is often not voiced by those who do trichopigmentation and SMP. And it's very important. You would think that regardless of any hairstyle, you can make a versatile SMP that will allow you to create a hair effect with any hairstyle. No, not quite like that. If it's for long hair, it will be a darker SMP. And when you shave your head, it can look super dark and unnatural. If you do an SMP for a bald head, when you grow your hair back, it will be less noticeable and still give away your baldness. Since starting my YouTube vlog and studying hair transplantation in parallel, I have never really forgotten about trichopigmentation and SMP, but you don't really meet such professionals at specialized congresses and forums. In fact, more often it is tattooists who create still very significant associations to sell their courses, training, materials and inks, tools, and so on. Always remember that the sphere of aesthetics is first and foremost a sphere of emotions. But to get a good result, it is these emotions that you need to turn off and approach it with a cold head and cold decisions. And to really understand, you need to dig through a lot of things and pore over a lot of things. On this principle, you can get ready for a lot of discoveries and in the field of treatment, hair transplants, doctors, congresses, and other things. Something also on the accumulation of critical mass will come out in my future videos. More immediate information in the Telegram channel and on Instagram. And then in Argentina, at one of the congresses, I met these 2 nice women, and it turned out to be exactly the result and philosophy that I had been looking for many years. I did 1 interview with them, I did a 2nd interview with them, I studied their work, I saw their patient client after 5 and after 6 years. What was their result? I prepared myself and did my trichopigmentation, SMP. It has been quite a long journey of researching the field of SMP. Here's, for example, the work that comes to me daily, even as an advertisement for trichopigmentation and SMP. How about this? But in an emotional rush, you can buy it and do this. Strange, ridiculous patterns, colors, transitions, curved lines, even the trichopigmentologists themselves. Can't they see that? And a bunch of stuff that's going to cause a lot of problems and affect your quality of life. It's up to you. As you have noticed, I have stopped discouraging anyone from doing anything. My task is to show, explain, calm emotions, and let them think and analyze. It is clear that not everyone can do this, and not everyone knows how to do it. That is why many clinics, unfortunately, use your emotional state to close some problem in order to get money. But it's not shawarma kiosk. Hey, brew! We'll do our best brew! On the other hand, you can probably understand that every plastic woman with big plastic tits also needs a suitable man with a similar quality hair transplant. Everyone has their own choice. Frontline changes. The advantage of trichopigmentation is the step-by-step approach, where you can walk around between treatments and look at yourself. If everything is normal, you go for a week or two, come to the specialist, and he can make certain corrections depending on what you want. The downside is that, again, if the specialist is a bit of a jerk, they can make the lines worse and worse each time. Second procedure, second stage. The redness. You can see it especially on the phone camera because in person it's not so visible. It's basically the same story as it was with the hair transplant. This redness, it was most visible on the phone camera. It's the same situation. You can see the areas that were worked on a second time. So, yeah, what's the situation on the back? On the back, so far, all my white dots are still in place. They haven't been touched. See how visible they are? And this will be especially telling for those with sensitive skin. And for those who are still considering whether to try a hair system before having a hair transplant. If there's a lot of alopecia and there's a lot of grafts that will be needed, be aware and be prepared for white dots. This is the number, a huge number of white dots that can appear. It can come from a bad doctor and team, but it also depends on the sensitivity of your skin and the amount of grafts that will be extracted as well. The danger of trichopigmentation is for life. Hair transplantation, its imperfections can, for example, be hidden by the very regrowing hair and combing this hair forward, as you can see in the portfolios of not very good clinics. The hair system is the perfect solution. As for me, in any situation, for any fantasy, perfect styles, awesome hairstyles. If you don't like it, take it off, throw it away, forget it. Well, not everyone has the courage to wear a hair system. With trichopigmentation, will not happen neither the first nor the second. Of course, there will be the first effect, wow, as in hair transplantation, whatever the quality of this transplant is not. After all, so long agonizing with the problem of baldness, and then suddenly at least some result. And if you still fertilize and butter you with the fact that, look bro, in a hug, look how cool it is, huh? And you're like, yeah, but it's better not to let it happen in the first place and prepare yourself. Unnatural look. Immediately set yourself up for the fact that SMP or trichopigmentation will be impossible to remove. If you just wait for fading, as some say, prepare for the worst, the effect of a dirty head and incomprehensible from others' reactions to your appearance. What is that black spot on your head anyway? Of course, many people won't even tell you, but you'll still catch stares from others. The second thing is infections, allergic reactions. Well, that's hopefully a lot easier to avoid than the first. And the latter can be cured, but the former will be impossible to get rid of. Total. Solving the problem, you can get even more of its realization, which will affect you and your quality of life, as well as your own self-esteem, and as a consequence, the quality of your life. Today was the third procedure, an extra 3 hours, and today we worked on the donor area. So as you can see, there are a lot of white dots left after the surgery, after the second surgery, and still left a scar that was still left after the first surgery. We can't touch it yet because it has to be at least 2 months since the laser removal. Since it has still been less than 2 months since the laser removal, so we are putting the area on hold for now. The thing is, if it's done sooner, the pigment can change, which is kind of not very desirable. So we decided not to take any chances, and we're doing the areas where we can. We haven't touched anything on the top today. Just as in choosing doctors for hair transplants, I look at trichopigmentologists for at least a year. The first most important thing is aesthetic taste and observation. It is one's own, you might say, non-linear vision, which unfortunately cannot be measured with a laser ruler or some gadgets, a sense of beauty and facial proportions. There are those who paint portraits with rulers, there are even those who invite artists to model your front line, and there are those who paint pictures with a developed sense of proportions. The second thing is a practiced hand, just like in hair transplantation, but even more so. At least hair can be transplanted so that it covers all the faults with its length. You can't cover anything up except with a cap, and it will be for life. Many people try to copy something successful, but it is better to find your own style. You either have a vision or you don't. There's nothing you can do about it. It takes a long time to accumulate, and it's an oversight. Visibility is not from the car on the way from home to the office, from the office to the store and home. It's the breadth of vision, the variability of possibilities. What do people of different races and nationalities look like? What are their similarities? What are their differences? You can be a great technician and teach this technique to people, but if you don't have vision and aesthetic intelligence, it's better not to make life difficult for others, right? It's still red, but it won't be like that later. Usually this redness and the bright color, the contrasting color, it lasts for about 3 days. Yeah, for about 3 days, then it gets less noticeable. The redness goes away. At least that's how it happens for me. Everyone has different skin sensitivities, different physiology. I see now everything is red, and in 3 days it will be almost invisible. And the pigment itself won't be as contrasting. So it will lose a little bit of color, and after the next 2 weeks, that is the minimum number of days that should pass before the next procedure on the same area, 14 days.
And now Wikipedia. When you enter different variations of simulated hair on your head, you'll be told it's called trichopigmentation. So I can't get away from that word. And I have a page called that because it's a key word. In general, of course, if you think about it, scalp micropigmentation, the translation is the same. Yes, scalp micropigmentation here, hair here. Well, basically one thing. But for myself, I understand that trichopigmentation. Here is someone who does mineral ink, which fades in a year and become red. They become indistinct. SMP is already a more permanent option and lasts 4 to 6 years.
At one time, I even did an interview, and at that time I realized that this trichopigmentation service was very much needed in the CIS. At that time, we even agreed on how we could work together, but you always have to dig deeper. There are no genders in professionalism, and there can be no condescension. It is criticism that must teach and develop. I remember back then, I spent a few weeks to make that video interview, and when I started to dig even deeper, to go into details, which I always recommend you to do, I realized that this is the result I would not want to have on myself. And if I don't want to have it on myself, then unfortunately, I can't recommend it to anyone. That's my rule, regardless of how profitable it would be for me or not. Maybe to a light degree for toning with your own hair, but definitely not for a bald head where you see the whole pattern completely. Basically, the task is accomplished. Everything is as I planned. Here is the trichopigmentation. Here, if you look closer, here is the hair growth, the transplanted hair. It all blends together. That is, the hair creates texture, and the trichopigmentation complements all the areas with a kind of toning where the hair is missing. A huge frontline problem that I always pay attention to. Attention after my case. That is, now I have to shave everything to 0 so that you can't see these stupid roundings. Because after a hair transplant, also the skin lifts up a little bit and it's still visible. SMP, trichopigmentation, helps a lot in this case because it smooths out this clear front line effect with a kind of fade. And not only the front line due to hair growth, but also due to skin elevation. But it's the same story as with hair transplant clinics. Beginners always need heads to practice, and therefore to make mistakes. It'll probably be cheaper, plus your emotional wannabe, and now you're a guinea pig. And once again, that's for life. Is it painful? No. Greed for knowledge and development. I go to congresses and conferences when I see very interesting topics of presentations, when there is the very understanding that I learned something new, something important, something I am learning, and here it is possible to go deeper into what. I definitely believe every doctor or any professional should develop as a technical artist. Well, it's probably not for nothing that abroad they are called an artist. The natural density of hair growth is 200 to 250 hairs per 1 square centimeter. In a 20 centimeter square, for example, like mine, we grow about 40,000 grafts. How then to get the good result when we plant on average always 4,000 to 5,000 grafts? It takes a specific good doctor, planning and math, and an aesthetic approach to distribution. This doesn't mean you should do SMP instead of hair transplant. Be sure to watch the video to the end. For the millionth time, I will tell you that it is imperative that before any hair transplant, plan to model the front line. If you can't do it yourself, feel free to contact me. I'll do it for you. And choose good doctors who will make you a natural good front line. Because what I had done 3 years ago, now I am removing these ugly grafts, which are double and triple, which are thick, which, most importantly, this stupid shape. And it is better to overpay or spend more time on analysis, on modeling and preparation for hair transplantation than to suffer and go through all this. This is just the first removal procedure. It's painful. At most, I endured an hour, and such procedures are still unclear how many need to do. Do not think that quality can be cheap. Especially if you want it to be an investment and not a headache. In this light, you can see very clearly the line where the front hairline was removed. You see, and behind this area, there is no more hair. But this is only one procedure. You will have to repeat it again and again. But it is noticeable that a rather large piece that had to be removed just because of these negligent aesthetes from the Promd clinic. The number of points needed for trichopigmentation, comparing it to a hair transplant. I've had 7 trichopigmentation treatments so far, an average of 5 hours each. Yes, this high number is due to the fact that it's not only the top part, but even more of a priority is to close the white dots after the hair transplant. During the SMP process, I've counted how many dots the technician makes per minute. Total per procedure, we get 25 to 32,000 dots. Multiplied by 5 procedures is 120 to 160,000 dots versus the 4,000 to 5,000 grafts we use in hair transplants. When you plan on 4,000 to 5,000 grafts for a large area, and you don't plan on growing hair that can cover the bald areas with its length when it grows back, and at some point in time you decide to shave your head, you might just see a picture very similar to mine. Another SMP procedure. Probably what, 5th or 6th? What we did yesterday was work on the scar. See, it's only the first procedure, and it's already closed up a little bit. I mean, the basic foundation has been laid. We'll need 1 or 2 more sessions, and then we're all set. But as you can see, it's already looking pretty much normal. The only thing is that now it's darker than it should be later. So it should fade a little bit, although it looks a lot better with my hair anyway. But I think it looks a little bit darker here. What do you think? Don't go overboard with the tinting. Less is better than more. This advice is as relevant as the density of hair systems for those who wear them. If the density is too high, the hair system looks like a wig. There is a need for proportion everywhere. Aesthetics requires logical shapes and a logical conclusion. Personally, I recommend using no more than 3 or 4 stages for the upper area and rarely 5 stages. Less is better than more. You will always be able to finish it. Do not trust just those who used to do just eyebrows, for example. In a lot of cases now, either they go with these green and blue stripes or their clients, and they've gone from a small area to a huge painting canvas. Or, for example, someone came out of a tattoo artist. Two kinds of tattoo artists: someone who downloads a drawing, prints it out, pastes it on you, and goes with a stencil pattern. Or those who draw on you are art, and various kinds of missteps are even welcome. That is, some part of imperfection, and if something went wrong, it can be sketched out. But here's the thing about SMP. Count on it being once and for life. What can and cannot be done, and for how long. Unlike, for example, hair transplants, there are not so many prohibitions and restrictions. For the first few days, you cannot wash your hair except with summer water that is not hot. Then, a special shampoo and cream is used. Hot baths, saunas, workouts, salt and chlorinated water, strong sun, these are all destroyers and detanglers, let's call it that, of SMP. In the first week, it is strictly forbidden. After that, it's up to you. Just accept the fact that this is what affects the quality of your trichopigmentation. Of course, I did a test drive in a very hot bath and in the sauna. Sauna, tropical conditions, heat, excessive sweat, sports, something I've also shot for a course on hair systems, so you understand what can happen under 1, 2, or 3 conditions. In the sea, under the field sun of the Philippines. Yes, it does affect fading. And when you think, yeah, who cares, I'll add more layers later. What if you get trichopigmentation often? It's not pretty. The most natural looking trichopigmentations are the first stages, then each additional stage gives your head a kind of muddy effect, meaning there are even these kinds of trichopigmentologists who benefit from getting their clients hooked on the service so that you come in for your treatments more often. Every year, every 2 years, there is even one Russian, forgot his name, trichopigmentologist who actually does mineral ink, and guys go to him every 6 to 8 to 12 months. 1 week after the 7th round of SMP, stage 7. The 7th stage was aimed at closing the points that were left after the first procedure, closing the donor area specifically. This is what it looks like now. As you can see, the ink can still show up a little bit more somewhere, so it can be darker. It takes some time for the skin, let's say this difference and this contrast, to go away, and everything becomes the same pattern. Just like on top, just like on the side. On one side and the other side. So as far as you can see, I hope you can see something. It's darker on this part, and it takes time for the skin to get used to it a little bit and to equalize everything with the upper part. Life hack. Avoid shine. You can see I don't have any shine. Shave the borders of the transplanted hair. What often defines and highlights trichopigmentation, the very effect of shine and the lack of those own hairs that give texture. See, I don't have shine because I have transplanted hair here. It takes away the shine and gives that very real texture. So if you run your hand over your head, you can feel it right there. And it is very pleasant because even professionals from the field of trichopigmentation and hair transplantation say that it looks very cool. It's invisible in all kinds of light, both in daylight and artificial light. I record a video in sunny daylight so you can see what my SMP looks like. Here's the top, the side. This is not an advertisement. I'm not advertising anyone. Just showing what it looks like for me after 7 treatments. I've had 4 treatments or 5 treatments on top and 2 or 3 treatments on the back. This is my scar, which is a little bit highlighted by the hair transplant. What does it look like from a distance, just in case? 1, 2, 3, 4, view. That's what I was trying to achieve. It's understandable. After all, I didn't do the emotional trichopigmentation. This is a deliberate, concrete plan. I have studied a lot of trichopigmentologists, traveled all over the world, looked at how they work, studied additionally the design of faces and different races and nationalities, how they differ. I modeled the frontal line for myself. If you need my advice and my experience, I will gladly share it in my detailed video consultation. Conclusions. Trichopigmentation is suitable for shaved heads. If you are doing a hair transplant for large areas of alopecia from the 4th degree and above, and at some point in the future you decide to shave your hair, be prepared to see a picture like mine. Micropigmentation is good for closing white spots after graft extraction, so you can plan your visit right away and start looking for a trichopigmentologist. The first is to even out the pattern of the denser transplanted hair and your finer hair. The second is to cover the white dots that will be left when the grafts are removed from the donor area. Trichopigmentation is the plan. With long hair, proper trichopigmentation will hardly be noticeable, but if you start getting stripes or dots of a deeper color painted under your own long hair, which will be darker, and at some point in time you shave your head, it could be a huge surprise to you. You may see a very big contrast of black and gray, or maybe even blue with a greenish tint to the spots compared to your own hair. What about trichopigmentation for women, in very rare specific cases? Imagine, you dyed your hair white and there's a black spot on your head, and that's just one example. And most importantly, remember that all your decisions have an impact on the quality of your future life or the set of problems you may face and deal with for the rest of your life. Yes, there are those who are complete narcissists who will say, "I'm fine with this." Anything that looks unnatural aesthetically is perceived by the outside world as someone else's aggression. There's something wrong with it, and it's best to avoid it. It's a common animal reflex. The hair system can be removed, discarded at any time. Hair transplants are expensive and difficult to restore, but sometimes it can be done, and again, not in all cases. And just as an option to close the faulty hair transplant with an SMP. But SMP, it turns out that this is the most extreme measure after which, in fact, it seems to be nothing. It will be impossible to get rid of or correct bad trichopigmentation. Be healthy. VALYN, for the best investment in yourself.